Welcome back to the Live Morning Show presented by Don Chevrolet. We are honored to have Colonel Laurie Buckhout with us today. Colonel Buckhout is a candidate for the newly formed First Congressional District in the state of North Carolina, State Congress. Colonel Buckhout, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Our pleasure. Let's jump right in. I could spend the entire time we have together talking about your resume, but I do want to give our viewers just a little bit of understanding. You have a bachelor's in science from James Madison University, and you were in ROTC there. You were commissioned as a second lieutenant upon graduation.
Yes, sir.
Master's of Arts in Military Arts and a Master's of Science in Information Management. You rose to the rank of colonel in the United States Army. You commanded an 800-person battalion. You were in combat in Iraq. And after you retired from the military, you opened your own business, Corvus Consulting, which dealt with cybersecurity and helped dealing with ways to prevent our soldiers from being killed and maimed by IEDs.
That is correct. That is correct. And please let me apologize for my voice. There's some nonsense going around, and
you are not
I got it.
You are not the only person that has been dealing with that. Trust me.
I know.
Distinguished Service Medal Bronze Star, Defense Meritorious Service Medal twice, and you're a parachutist. Now, I'm not going to let you go before I ask you about being a parachutist. But let me start with this. Why are you running? You are running for a seat in Congress, which, at best, Congress can be described as dysfunctional. There are no simple campaigns anymore. We're beyond that. Why are you running at this point with it? Why run?
So I'll tell you, I'm certainly not doing it for money or fame or power. I will probably, I'm losing money as you do this, because it's an expensive fight.
Absolutely.
Don't need the power, don't need the prestige. I was ready to retire, but the situation in this country has gone so bad. And I see so many brave people standing up to fight for the America that we grew up in. I'd feel remiss if I did not stand up too. I'm a mom. I've got two boys, 21 and 24. And I have so many dear friends raising children and grandchildren right now. I see America slipping away. I come from a family of service. Both of my parents served, my grandfather served. It's in my blood, and I don't feel that I can just walk away from this fight and let America dissolve into the sands, or even worse. I feel I have to fight. I have the courage to fight. I have the backbone to fight. I think I have the experience to fight, and I think I can help the people of my district, the people of North Carolina, and hopefully the people of America. We need fighters, and I would be proud to stand up with those who are already declaring themselves in the fight.
I would like to point out that your husband is also military. He was an Army Ranger, I believe.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. West Point graduate, Army Ranger.
If you're elected, how would you then categorize, or how would you envision your time in Congress? What would you like to accomplish? And even that day one, what would you like to accomplish should you be elected?
I think the most important thing that Republicans need right now, or that Congress needs in general, is unifying. People are running on a platform of being the great unifier or unifier in chief or anything like that, and it only dissolves into rhetoric. Now, campaigns are tough, but should I be fortunate enough to get elected, I think the first thing to do is start to bring the Republican Party together. The infighting is serving no one. It is only making it more difficult for us to take care of the American people. And the infighting across the parties is doing no one any good. So I would hope to begin to unify, at least within my own party, to start with my own party on day one. I am an experienced leader. The Army teaches you a lot of things. The one thing it does pound into you day after day is leadership. And that is reaching out to others, not having to be the most important or smartest person in the room, but being the one who's able to bring everyone together for a common cause.
I would ask our viewers to understand that it not just everyone in the Army, rises to the rank of colonel, and B, not everyone in the Army who rises to the rank of colonel is also in a command position at a battalion level, 800 individuals. That is not everyone's chosen path in the military. So congratulations to that.
Oh,
I would say
I was
that
very blessed.
speaks to your experience. One of the things that I saw in doing my research for you is that you are very committed to agriculture, especially in the area that you represent in North Carolina. Speak a little bit about that, if you would, please.
Agriculture is North Carolina's biggest industry. I grew up on a farm in the Shenandoah Valley, a Hereford Angus farm in Waynesboro, Virginia. So small southern town, very much like the town we've ended up in Edenton, North Carolina. We're surrounded by cotton, soybean, peanut fields, and as I've been driving around the district getting to know it, talking with pork producers, talking with poultry producers, and here's what's interesting to me, just a side note. I talked to a hog farmer in Gates County and said, hey, where are you selling your hogs for finishing, production, et cetera? And he said, I sell most of them to China. And I was, you got to make a living. And so I asked him why, and he said, it is 10 times less the bureaucracy to sell my hogs to China and have it finished and produced than it is to go with an American company. And that's because of the overregulation in agriculture and in agricultural products. You'll see the same thing with soybeans, peanuts, cotton, and the price rising to produce those across all farming endeavors. And farm families are the backbone of North Carolina. So it's something I'm very interested in and very passionate about.
Have, in your discussions with your constituents, or constituents if you're to be elected, have you heard any common themes, or is that the overregulation one of the themes that you've heard as you've spoken to them?
That's a big theme. Cost of living is just an incessant drumbeat. It's very painful. Of course, fuel costs are driving everything through the roof, and the lack of domestic energy touches everything in our lives, especially touches farmers. But the inflation for everything, food prices, for energy, childcare, transport, everything is through the roof thanks to Bidenomics. It's incredibly painful. Taxes, the debt, and the fact that your dollar is buying so much less. So it's extraordinarily painful on North Carolina families right now. And it comes down to overspending at the federal level, comes down to the debt, and having no desire to even slow back on it. Has to do with overregulation, has to do with fuel prices, and the lack of domestic energy production. All of that is hitting families so hard.
And not
excuse me.
Quite all right. Not just farm families, all families.
All families.
Yes.
All families.
Let's change topics, because another issue that you have mentioned highly in your campaign is border security and immigration. Tell me a little bit about your thoughts on that. Should you be elected, how would you begin to address that? How do you see the situation? How would you address that situation in Congress?
The situation is something between 9 and 10 million illegal aliens here. North Carolina is a state of about 10 million. So the fact that we have all these folks coming in as tremendous, not just tremendous burdens on a social welfare system, they're impacting the fact that we have expanded Medicaid now in North Carolina. Illegal aliens are accessing that on your tax dollars. But there's also the enormous security risk. There is disease. There is potential terrorism, there's drugs, there's fentanyl coming over the border in unprecedented amounts. We have the highest number of overdoses on record this last year in our nation. And it's just appalling. Day one needs to be to shut the border down. And I know there are legitimate refugees who are seeking America and under normal legal construct would be allowed to come in. But at this point, the border is so overwhelmed, you can't even sort them out. You need to stop border operations, at least temporarily, to figure out who is even eligible to come into America.
Let's take that just a step further. And I'll call them illegal aliens, because in my opinion they are illegal aliens.
At this point, yes.
For the illegal aliens that are already here, from your opinion, from a congressional standpoint, what is the path forward with them?
At some point, Congress needs to discuss deportation. and they need to determine who's who. As I said earlier, I'm quite sure that there are people bent on terrorism coming into this nation.
Hard to believe that out of the millions that have been here, that there aren't some, at the very minimum, some that are here to do us harm.
There are some, I'm sure there are some here to do us harm. They encountered 10 improvised explosive devices at the Mexican border recently.
I saw that.
Then that has, of course, been on doing harm. I ran a company that stopped soldiers from being blown up by IEDs. So they're definitely bent on doing us harm. I'm sure many of the people you see riding in the streets pro-Hamas, they're there to do us harm. We need to evaluate and do a sweep of everyone who's here. Some of those should not be in America. Some of those should be deported. And the rest, that's going to take more analysis. What do you do with people who bring with them only poverty? They're not educated, they don't speak English. What are they qualified to do as far as work, contribute to the workforce?
Yes.
We have to consider the good of America first.
Yes, I would agree with that statement. Let me shift topics again. We talk about immigrants, we talk about illegal aliens coming in and trying to help them. We also have veterans who are homeless, men and women veterans who are homeless, who are dealing with trauma, post-traumatic stress disorder, issues that coming back and readjusting into society. In your opinion, what should we be doing to assist our veterans who are coming back, who have served us and are now back trying to adjust back to civilian life?
We need to look at, first off, we need to prioritize veterans. We need to prioritize veterans for health care over illegal aliens, and that's currently not the case. We need to prioritize homeless veterans for housing over illegal aliens, and that's currently not the case.
Yes.
And we need to prioritize veterans' health care, and not just with the VA. The VA can be a good system. Unfortunately, a lot of what goes into the VA goes into bureaucracy. Big government and big Democrat government loves big Democrat health care. And a lot of that is just bureaucracy in terms of what we used to call the tooth to tail ratio. What is the tooth of the dragon that's really taking care of things, and what's the tail that's just up there? That's the bureaucracy. The VA is in danger of being overwhelmed by bureaucracy, and it needs to have some very harsh looks taken at it to make sure that it's responsive to veterans at the tactical point, at the point of the spear,
Yes.
where veterans really need care, and not just more offices and offices and offices.
But that is the that is the promise that we gave to our veterans when they volunteered for
It
the
is.
military. To not follow through on that is a breach of the contract, in my opinion, that we gave to our veterans.
It is unconscionable.
There are some things facing Congress that next year are going to be addressed, it looks like. If you're elected, you very well could have an impeachment proceedings facing you in January or February for President Biden. You have the ongoing January 6th situation. You've got what appears to be a burgeoning issue with tech companies that are using their ability to gather data illegally on
Right.
American citizens.
Right.
All of those things would appear to be facing Congress. We have the expiration of the 2017 tax cuts that will come up in 2016, which will fundamentally change how all of us deal with government, our taxes, all of that. With all of those issues facing you, what would be, how would you prioritize that, or how would you look at that slate of things potentially facing you if you're elected to Congress?
Well, first off, as a constitutional conservative, that should always be your guide. In my mind, that should always be your guide.
Yes.
And the Constitution is about citizens first. Citizens own government. Citizens, we are government for and by the people. So I would think it would be most important to look at those elements which mostly impact the citizenry and the people of my district. That includes the tax cuts. That includes national security.
Yes.
That includes doing your job, make sure the president does his job as chief executive, which is to execute the orders of the legislative branch, which is Congress.
Yes.
So going back to what Congress should do, which is to legislate and to legislate for the people. So those priorities include, for starters, I'm an energetic person and I'm not dumb. And the people you elect to Congress shouldn't be either one. They should be able to walk and chew gum at the same time, right? So people say, I can't do this because I'm doing this. Have some energy and get some fire in your belly and stand up and take care of the business that you were elected to. So it goes to tax cuts. It goes to making sure citizens are safe in their homes. It goes to making sure citizens have all the rights they should. First Amendment right, they shouldn't be censored. Second Amendment right, the right to keep and bear arms. 10th Amendment, which goes to making sure that Congress is not making rules that local and state should be making. So honestly, following the Constitution is something we need to get back to. Breaking up omnibus bills so that they're not just full of pork and that we're not legislating to legislate for legislation's sake. So I would say a priority is getting back to basics and doing basics right. We continue to forget that, and every time there's election, people are throwing elbows to get in front of the camera and say what we're doing and how we're legislating. So much more important is, frankly, a lack of legislature and knowing when to stop and knowing when to back away and knowing when to say. The Second Amendment is pretty absolute, right? We need to stop trying to over-legislate that and tweak it. So I would say my priority is getting back to basics and helping push the rest of Congress to get back to basics.
As you have considered this run for Congress and decided to do it and have put obviously a lot of thought into it, let me ask you, is there a politician or current or former politician that you admire that you might say you would pattern yourself after?
My first vote ever was for Ronald Reagan. And I'm a committed Reaganite. I never voted for anything but a conservative from my very first vote on. My parents were conservative. My husband is conservative. But in his view, his terms of his view of limited government, his views of deregulation, his views of returning power to the people, and his eagerness to give away power has always resonated with me greatly. If you look at, and of course, he loved George Washington. Remember, George Washington refused another term as president. He purposefully gave away power. And I believe that's the most important thing you can do in Congress or in any elected office. Give people the power that they really have to exercise. Let them exercise their power.
Colonel Buckhout, our time on these interviews goes so very quickly, we could spend easily another hour talking. As we begin to wrap things up, let me ask you this. If this is our first exposure, some of our viewers' first exposure to you, if you would like to leave them with one thing that they would take from this interview, what would that be?
I am running on experience and leadership because I think we desperately need them both, because the American ship of state is drifting. It's drifting dangerously. I'm very proud of all the Americans who are standing up right now. There is a movement afoot for conservatives especially, or for anybody, standing up against the totalitarianism that has taken over this country. I would tell you that I hear you. I would tell you that trust yourselves, trust your judgment. What you see is wrong. Don't let people tell you it is wrong, and seek those who will stand up with you against this fight. I promise you that I will.
Thank you. If someone wants to find out more about your campaign, how can they do that?
www.Laurie Buckhout, and that's LaurieBuckhout for Congress.com.
I will tell you that in the online search that I did in preparing for this interview, I did not have to go much far beyond LAURA or First Congressional District, and your name was top of the list that came up.
Thank you.
One last question. I want to ask you. You have your parachutist wings. Tell me what those emotions were standing in that door the very first time before you took the step out of the airplane.
Well, they had me stand in the door the long time. I was the only female in my particular stick. So they held me up there, I think, to say, hey, she's not afraid, so you shouldn't be either. I was very afraid. I think I screamed. I don't remember. I would
imagine there were some men that did the same as well.
But after the chute deployed, it's a beautiful ride.
That's just something that not everybody has a chance to experience.
They should.
Thank you again. Colonel Buckhout, thank you for being here. Good luck with your campaign.
Thank you.
If you would like to find out more about Colonel Buckhout's campaign, the information will be here at the station. It's also available online. We're going to step aside for these commercial messages. When we come back, we'll have our last look at weather. And Wayne and I will wrap things up. You're watching WHIG, the live morning show presented by Don Blick Chevrolet. We'll be right back.